Welcome to Bussing, Mommy, and LollieTasking. I am your host, Dr. Lola, a wife, mom of three, physician, entrepreneur, and also a productivity and work-life strategist. I invite you to join me and other amazing women as we chat about our passion, work, businesses, other topics, and how we seem to have it all together, balancing motherhood and work. I hope by the end of this conversation, you realize you can do it too, with some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash of determination. This is LollieTasking. Hello, LollieTaskers. Welcome again to Bossing, Momming, and LollieTasking. In the spirit of renewing our body, we are happy to present our AfroPolitan Health on LollieTasking episodes where we discuss different health topics that especially affect people of African descent in the U.S. and the diaspora. Our hope is by the end of the show, we would have educated you, empowered you, and motivated you to take action on your health. So, today's actually going to be a solo episode. On today's episode, I put on my productivity hat down for a second and I talk about health. I talk about what gingers me. So we are going to talk to the real Dr. Lola, what I do every day, but specifically in the pediatric and fetal cardiology arena. So most of you guys know the Dr. Lola Day is actually the physician side of me, the doctor, the DR. I'm a physician, but I'm not a generalist. I work specifically with moms who are pregnant and know that they have their child has a heart condition, or children with what we call congenital heart conditions. And congenital essentially means that the way the heart was formed is not typical. It was pre-programmed in a way that we're not used to. So the easy way I explain it to people is like, listen, adult people work with normal heart gone wrong. Pediatric or congenital cardiologies, a lot of times, not all the times, work with abnormal hearts, and we're trying to make it go the right way. Okay, so there's so many different congenital heart defects. A lot of people tell me all the time, I didn't know kids had heart problems. I'm like, yes, they do have heart problems. I wanted to talk to something near and dear to me, though. This is now the preventative cardiology aspect of it. And we know in LollieTasking, I try to talk about things that can prevent issue. So the topic today is heart attack. It starts in childhood, okay? So a lot of times we talk about healthy diet, we talk about reducing our risk for heart disease with diabetes, but a lot of things we don't talk about is that a lot of this precursors to even having heart attack starts in childhood. So before I even talk about heart attack, I want to talk about what exactly a heart attack is, right? In medicine, we call it myocardial infarction. Myocardia is basically heart muscle, and infarction is like basically the death of the heart muscle. So heart attack occurs when the flow of blood. Okay, so let's go back to basics. Okay, so we all know we have a heart. I tell people the main function of the heart is really to pump blood to all parts of the body. So think of the heart as the pump of the body. The heart also has an electrical I can't talk out. An electric system. So we call this the rhythm of the heart. The rhythm tells the pump what to do. So just remember those two things. So the heart pumps blood to the body. Think of your red blood cells as a dump truck, okay? And the dump truck has to go around and drop certain pebbles in different parts of the body. And then think of oxygen as the pebble. So the red blood cell gets the oxygen from the lungs, and then from the lungs, it goes to the heart, and from the heart, it goes through a big vessel called the aorta. The aorta is almost like the stem of the tree, like the big stem of the stump. Not the stem, the stump of the tree. And then from the stump of the tree, you go into different branches. So the red blood cell, the dump truck, takes the oxygen, the pebbles in the dump truck, to all parts of the body. The oxygen is actually actually the energy of the cells, and that's why we can't live more than a few minutes without oxygen. So that's why it's very imperative that we get good oxygen supply. The lungs, we have good lungs, and that's why it's imperative that, we're able to breathe. Okay. So how does this lead to heart attack? Okay. So when the blood comes to the left side of the heart from the lungs, it gets to the left side of the heart, it gets out of the aorta. The very, very, very first, the first branch, if you may, that comes off the aorta is actually something called the coronary artery. The coronary artery is the actual blood vessel that feeds the heart. Okay. Remember when I said without oxygen, you can't, the cells can do its job. So the heart knows that, okay, even the cells in the heart needs to do its job. So the very, very first stop in the dump truck is to feed the heart. Okay, so it goes to the coronary vessels. The coronary vessels then takes that blood and deposit it in all the various heart vessels. Okay, so that's that. So what happens in heart attack is after like years of eating all this fried chicken and yummy food, like all those food that we know are not good for us, right? We have something called lipids, essentially fat, that can that it's also in these vessels. And that's why when you check your cholesterol, you check your lipid panel, that's what you're measuring, that how much lipid is also in this blood, right? Remember I said red blood cell is what carries the oxygen, but blood has other kind of things in there, like water, nutrients, like different things in the blood vessel itself. So fat is, for lack of a better term, is one of the things in the vessel. So as you can imagine, just as the blood cells are going through, the fat cells are going through too. So it's almost like, I guess the way I could think about it is like you have dust in the house, right? If you don't clean up your house, you're going to have like a huge layer of dust, right? But if you clean up your house every day, or the house is locked, right? So you don't have enough dust coming in, you don't have as much dust settles in. So you could think of cholesterol as little dust in the blood. It's not really a dust, just think like that. As little dust in the blood vessels. So after so many years of just little dust in the blood vessels, if you don't do anything to clean up those dust, you can imagine that those dust can actually get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? To a point where, think about the vessel is literally a circular object. So if the fats continue to deposit after decades of this fat depositing, you now have a reduction of the amount of blood that can go through the vessel. Okay, so we call this plaque. So when basically the dust settles, it forms a plaque inside the arteries that feed the heart, which is the coronary arteries, right? So what happens is now you have less blood that can get to the heart itself,
Thanks
right?
for hanging out with me.
And when you have less blood that can get to the heart, you have less red blood cell that can get to the heart, and you have less oxygen that can get to the heart. Remember when I talked about it, I said oxygen is really the building block or the food that feeds our system. So if the heart cannot get oxygen, your heart essentially dies. So that's what we call heart attack.
Go ahead and click that
subscribe button. So in medicine, we call that myocardial infarction. So before we even go into like what are the symptoms, how this affects your childhood and stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the symptoms. So like for adults, a lot of times we'll have a chest tightness, pain, squeezing, a an aching sensation. Sometimes it's just like an arm pain that spreads to the neck, jaw, back. Some people, I see this a lot in children actually, would have like heartburn or abdominal type pain. They may have shortness of breath. They may have cold sweats, lightheadedness, dizzy. They're not looking good, okay? Because think about it. The heart, remember I said the heart is the pump that provides oxygen to the rest of the body. So if the heart itself isn't receiving the oxygen it needs to pump, the rest of the body doesn't either. So that's why you get some of these other symptoms that you also get in accordance to having a heart attack, okay? So how does this relate to children? So remember when I talked about heart attack a lot of times occurs because of the many years of lipid buildup or sugar buildup or all the stuff that ends up clogging our artery. I tell people that heart attack doesn't just happen when you're 50, right? Like a lot of times we see it in older people, but it starts as a child. So this is why I tell people it is very important that you teach your child to try to eat healthy and live a cardiovascularly healthy lifestyle. Because one, when you teach them those habits, you teach them as a child, grows into adulthood and can actually save their life. We've seen now in pediatrics things that we never used to see, like the increase in obesity, and children are now having type 2 diabetes, like things we never really used to see in children, right? Like adults' problems, children are having it because of this rise in obesity. So, what I want to talk to you today is how can we stop obesity? Like, how can we prevent this from happening in our little children? Okay. Like I said, like those lipid stuff, they all start as when you're younger, but we could reduce the risk. And as you guys know, when I come on here, these are super short episodes, but I just kind of want to give you some things that can help you as a mom and as aunties and for the men that listen, uncles and dads. Okay, so let's talk about just simple things I encourage or I recommend to my patients that help them. So there's something I learned when I was in residency called the 5210 rule. Okay, and I understand this is the COVID era, like things are not typical, but I think we can try to adjust it, or at least try to minimize the amount of things we're doing that's going to contribute to unhealthy lifestyle in our children. Okay, so the 5210 rule says that you have to have 5 or more veggies and fruits a day. In my clinic, I tell my patients, like, I need your plate to be as colorful as possible with a lot of fruits and vegetables. Okay, you have to have your children do no more than 2 hours of screen time a day. Okay, so I have a little caveat to that because in the COVID era, a lot of kids are doing, virtual school. So I personally do not let my kids watch recreational television during the school week. They can watch recreational television on Friday, Saturday, and a little bit on Sunday. By 4 5 p.m. on Sundays, we're done watching recreational television, right? So during the week, the screen time they have is focused on educational things. By the time school is done, they probably have an hour or two to do some of those things. But like as you guys know, school, it looks different for a lot of people this year. So I'll say, take this with a grain of salt. What I have said though to parents is that if your child is doing 6 hours of on-screen activity, I think you should try to do to combat that 6 hours sitting, I do 3 hours of fun non-screen time activity. This does not mean you go out and run. It could be as simple as running around in the house, laughing, joking, playing cards, like doing other things that does not include screen time. So that's the way I've been able to combat it. Oh, the next one is 1 hour of physical activity a day. Actually, before I even go back, no, yes, let me talk about that. So, it is recommended that children ages 5 to 17 at least do 60 minutes of moderate or vigorous physical activity, such as aerobics, something that gets their heart rate up at least 3 times a week. If they can do it daily, that's fantastic, but not everybody can do it daily. And a way to get that in is to enroll your children in sports activities. Again, when the COVID season, there is a limit of sports activity. So maybe what you guys can do as a family is have nightly bike rides. You could do nightly walk as a family. You could do nightly dance parties. Just something to get the heart moving. I think it's very important to create the time and the space for it, because if you don't have it, I'm always one of those people that'll tell you, if you don't have it scheduled, it's not going to happen. And another thing I want you to think about it is, do not call it exercise. Call it like, we're going to ride our bike, we're going to hike, we're going swimming, we're taking a trip, we're doing, like, call it what it is. Because as soon as you call it exercise, it looks like a chore to you and the children. Like, so you could say, oh, our fun time. Like, maybe you have like an hour of fun time every day. Another thing is, like, when you guys go to the store, don't try to park so close to the store. Maybe park a little bit of distance. Another thing I've done in the past is when we go to the mall, you know how like the mall has different like department store entrances? I purposely park in the opposite of where I want to go. So it forces me to walk through the mall. That's if I have time, obviously. If I don't have time, I'm like in and out. But it forces me to walk through the mall, and just, spend more time than I would typically have spent by doing that. Okay. So that's very important. What else? Then I think that's good for the 1 hour of physical activity. The next thing that you should think about is zero sugar or sweetened beverages. So, like, in this world, like, a lot of people are like, but I had to have my juice. Like, what I tell my kids is like, the best juice you can have is like freshly squeezed oranges, or maybe like apple smoothie, like things like that. So, but you don't necessarily need simple sugars. I've cut that from my diet about a year ago, and to be honest, it has helped me a lot, especially with my ADHD as well. So try to avoid, like, even sugar drinks like fruit juice, even the ones that said they have 100% juice. No, they don't. A lot of time they have a little bit of sugar in it. If your children must have juice, which I do not recommend, I do encourage you to water it down, like mix it with water, so then it reduces the concentration of juice with sugar that they actually ingest. Okay, so there's so many different things. I say, oh, we need this, we need that, we need juice. No, you don't necessarily need juice. I do tell my kids, and they ask me for juice, I'm like, listen, you could go ahead and eat that apple and chase it down with water. That's juice. Okay. I'm not saying my children don't drink juice, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that the amount of juice you drink is very important. And we also know that if you eat a lot of simple sugars, it actually leads to obesity faster. So we're trying to prevent heart attack as an adult, like I said. So it starts in childhood. All right, so I think that's what I have today. I can go over some other tips and tricks that I teach my families. One of the most important thing I tell family is that you cannot have unhealthy food and eat unhealthy food and expect your children to do it. So it actually starts with you as parents, like taking that lead and doing what you need to do. The good thing about kids is that they do what you do, not what you say. And if they see that you're actually eating healthy, you see yourself as a healthy person, you fully embody it, they also will do. Okay. I would also say avoid buying like juices or things that would basically like set your child into a craving mode when they see it, right? Like, why have it if you're not going to give it? Sometimes I hear from family, well, I don't buy it for the kids, I buy it for visitors. And my thing is, why would you want to give your visitor unhealthy stuff, right? So, really, really think about that. I also recommend not having like a set dinner time that you guys eat together, and trying for kids not to eat after dinner time till breakfast time. Okay. Let me see, what else can I tell you guys about this? Um, with screen time, one thing I have done that's been fantastic is going ahead and set parental control on the children's iPad. So once they've gone over a certain time limit, the iPad essentially prevents them from going on until you put in a password for them. Okay, so those are the tricks I have so far. If you have any questions, please do feel free to contact me. Another thing before I go, I want to mention again, I do have a productivity program starting on Tuesday. It's called Accomplish with Ease. It's for any woman out there who is so tired of your brain sabotaging them and they are ready to live the life that God made for them. So I help women with ADHD and I help these overwhelmed moms. So if this is